welcome to episode 348 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, Vision Pro, Mac, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and I'm so happy we have my great crew here this week, and Chuck Joyner's coming back and joining us again this week. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you for having me.
Yes, always great to have you. And this stranger is back. He's been out, unfortunately, working, but I'm glad he's back this week. Ben Rathig, how you doing, Ben?
Good. I would be rather working on this than working in my day job or night job in my case.
Yeah. So I'm so glad to be here. We're going to look forward to your insights this week. And also glad to be here is Marty Jencius. How you doing, Marty?
It's been a day. I think we've all been to meetings that go on about an hour longer than they need to.
Yes.
And, you sit quiet through the whole thing, and then at one point you speak up and you speak the truth. And as the old saying says, you better have a horse by the door if you speak the truth. So I had one of those days today. Felt good about saying what I had to say, but I'm glad to be here tonight.
Yeah.
And tomorrow is like fun day, Friday fun day.
Well, this week has been a fun week because, boy, Apple really did some crazy amounts of announcements and released some products. So we're really going to go in a little bit of in depth here. And we'll do the usual things, Vision Pro, Mac, and beta, and all the other fun stuff. So like we've been doing every week, we're starting with Vision Pro this week. Well, they did release the second beta of Vision OS 2.4, and that's out to developers. And the biggest thing that came out with it was Apple Intelligence, and also you can it's got the writing tools, of course, and Genmoji, and it's got Memory Movie and the Image Playground, priority notifications, and it's got ChatGPT integration, and there's even a dedicated Spatial Gallery app, which we'll talk about in a minute. But so far, I've been using it. It seems pretty cool. I haven't really had much with Apple Intelligence, though. And I think you made a comment last week, Marty, that there wasn't much to it, right?
Yeah, it hasn't emerged yet. They said it'll come in April, and everybody assumes that if you're on the developer beta, it's there now, and it's not quite there now. Even the Spatial Gallery is kind of nice. It's a demo of all of the wonderful pictures that Apple can make and video clips that Apple can put together in Spatial, but it's not my gallery yet. I mean, there's not a Jencius wing in it where I can start hanging my spatial photos in. So hopefully it'll evolve to that and not just be sort of a marketing tool for spatial photography and spatial video, but a true gallery. So there's been a number of outlets here have had hands-on with the Vision Pro and the Apple Intelligence, and it really wasn't much that they could really say. It's got some things to go just yet, but I'll be interested to see as it evolves. So just like it's been evolving with iOS and iPadOS, I think is going to change anything. Have you guys been like Chuck? Have you been using any of the Apple Intelligence stuff on your iOS or iPad device? Yeah, I've been playing a little bit with it. I did finally break down and subscribe to ChatGPT, so I've been doing some comparisons on things.
You hit us both, because I did too.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just Marty. There were a few other contributors to it, but it's been interesting, to compare summaries by ChatGPT as opposed to summaries by Apple Intelligence. I can't say that I think one is better than the other necessarily. Apple Intelligence is definitely more convenient if it does what you're looking for it to do because it's built in. But, ChatGPT also it's a little more mature. I'm not going to say more powerful, just more mature, flexible, or maybe is a better way to say it. So, it's got to be everybody's choice. But I think it's reasonable. The only thing I was having this discussion with a friend today, and the only thing they really set me back on my heels a little because they said, experiment, fine, but when you're trying to train ChatGPT, when you're using ChatGPT, you are training ChatGPT.
Sure. Right.
And it's like, I knew that, but I had not really thought about it in exactly those terms. It's like, okay, this is, how do I feel about that? I'll let you know. I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Ben? Have you explored Apple Intelligence much?
A little bit.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, with the exception of the writing tools, which have pretty much replaced what's it called? Grammarly.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Which I use at work.
yeah. I haven't had a whole lot of use for Apple Intelligence. The Genmojis are a little bit beyond my age group, so to speak.
Right.
And I occasionally get something that's dumped with Siri, where Siri goes like, "Hey, let me ask ChatGPT instead."
Yeah.
But I mean, at this point, Apple Intelligence is still very, very much in its early days.
That's working through it. Jeff, you too? Have you explored anything?
Oh, hey, Dave.
Hey.
I've been playing with it some on my Mac, and
I'm missing there. Go ahead.
Oh, I love you, Dave. Anyhow, I haven't found much in it that is really useful for what I do on a daily basis. So mostly it's been summarizing things for me, which is at this point more of an entertainment thing than a useful feature, because it comes up with weird summaries.
Yeah, it does.
I must be the trained monkey in this group, because it keeps training me and training me and training me, and I get better and better and better at using it. So it just seems like it's become a tool that and I'm talking about LLMs in general. ChatGPT or Apple Intelligence still has a ways to go. And if you get really good at other versions of AI interface, you get more disappointed in what Apple hasn't done yet. It's surprising how well you can do things with some things, but it keeps training me. And every time I've figured this is okay, so this is what you got. This is what I'll use it for. Then I come up with some other idea and try it, and it works. So,
Marty, you just touched on something that I think I've talked about on other shows, which is Apple's place in the current lineup of AI LLM systems. And I get that Apple is taking a more conservative approach because they have a higher desire to protect our privacy. But at this point, I don't think it matters for consumers, because what Apple is doing with their AI, in the space that people are actually looking at right now, they're so far behind that it doesn't matter what benefits we're getting from the privacy features they offer us. It's just not enough. The features just aren't there. You can do so much more with all of these other platforms. And was it last week we got to see the new A-Lady features? And it's like, holy crap, where is Apple in all of this? So also,
that's trying to perfect it, I guess.
At some point you have to ship a product, and so far it's Apple's intelligence features behind the scenes are doing remarkable things. Their forward-facing features, the things that people are looking at today that they will compare to ChatGPT and to A-Lady Plus and all of these other. Yeah, it's just Apple is too far behind to be a true competitor right now, and I want to see them change that.
I'm a little more forgiving, because I think when I go to use ChatGPT or some other LLM, I'm not anticipating that it's going to understand my context, and I'm not anticipating that it's going to protect my privacy. So with those two things that Apple is staying true to, kind of hobbles them from moving as quickly as possible. So I get a little forgiving when I'm like, okay, so Apple's not there yet, but because I know they've got different constraints on them that I want eventually, that's going to slow them down.
Yeah.
I
get what you're saying.
Marty, I'm curious about one thing, and this can be open to anybody that wants to respond. How often do you use the output of ChatGPT or any other of the LLMs untouched? Or do you take it and edit it, stroke it, caress it, make it something that fits you? And because in my mind, in the process of doing that, I'm also kind of fact checking it. That's not the right term, I guess. Just looking for hallucinations, looking for things that I know are inaccuracies. And so I find it as a great tool to get something started, but I'm not sure I've ever taken something, just cut it out of ChatGPT and pasted it anywhere and said, that's it.
No,
well, go ahead, Chuck, or go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, I did it to just, when I wanted to put together a presentation, I put, I would run through my question about it. And we've shown this before. I did it in Microsoft PowerPoint, and it created slides for a specific topic. But I did a ChatGPT thing because I wanted to get a little more detail of what I was going to talk about in a particular presentation. So, I put it in there and say, here, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to really give an exact example, and I wanted this and you want this, you know what you normally have to do with ChatGPT. But, then it starts putting in these really big words. And if I were to copy this word by word, it's like, well, that sure doesn't sound like Dave because there's going to be words that there's no way I would probably use. I mean, I know what they mean and what they are, but why would I want to just copy verbatim? And that's where I guess our problem is. Sorry to have to go in. We're getting into this more deep conversation about the AI, but that's the concern with with schools and with students, and Marty, but at being at the university, so and there's a fine line where you want to do it, and that's where companies have to put fine lines of where you use it too. I mean, you're using it for suggestions for things, but you don't want to be putting data out there. The whole thing. I don't want to go down that rat hole again here with that topic, but that's really where I see it. When you write something, don't just copy it word to word because it may not sound like you at all.
Yes,
because I've done it and I've showed it I showed it to my wife. Says there's no way you wrote that, right away because she knows me, So, but some people may or may not know it. But that's the thing. You got to be careful where you do it. Use it as suggestion, not word.
Yeah, well, I want to get off in touch with ChatGPT, but one thing I did want to say is I don't take the first draft because often I'll forget things that I want to put in. There'll be things that I want to emphasize, and I just go, please add this in. The date has changed on this, et cetera, et cetera. Or end off reminding them of the phone number that. So if I'm generating an email, it goes through about 3 or 4 renditions because I'm constantly correcting what it's doing. Like I said, I'm the trained monkey here. And finally I get an output that pretty much is cut and paste at that time. I'm not using it for high risk data or anything like that. I'm using it to generate and documents or generally emails or things, plans and things like that I have to submit. So
yeah,
but I don't stop with one draft. I just keep going. I mean, I just keep
makes sense.
Training it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to. That's like you said, you're continually training. And now a few of us now are subscribers. You got to train it the way you want it, the way you are. So, all right, let's move on. Couple more items I had with Vision Pro. The Vision Pro Spatial Gallery now launched, like I said, in beta 2 of Vision OS 2.4. Made some pretty major improvements here. Includes the gallery that's it's in beta, so it's available as of today. So you got spatial photos, spatial videos, and panoramas from artists, filmmakers, and photographers. And Apple's offering another range of content, including sports, culture, arts, lifestyle, and so on and so on, to provide some visual content from top artists, visionary creators. And this is pretty cool. And I hadn't had a bit of a chance to run through any of these. Did you have a chance to look at this at all?
Yeah, I went through all of them, and again, it's impressive. I just want that one tab on the side that has my, where I can put my stuff. And some of it is, some of it is from artists, and I want to know how did Apple get a hold of this stuff? Because maybe there's something I want to send in. Not that I think it's worthy as these are really great uh, versions of spatial photography and video.
Another way to extend that, so it's definitely going to be interesting. Then lastly, with iOS 18.4 beta 2, which we'll talk about here in a minute here, they did release an app for the iPhone. If you're a Vision Pro owner, and it'll be automatically installed, that Vision Pro owners can now control what's going on with your Vision Pro, which is the first time here ever that this can do. Apple did announce this a few weeks ago, and it's going to be amazing. It'd be much easier to download content to the Apple Vision Pro, as well as when the headset's not in use, you can do that as well, because that's always has been that was the biggest that was my biggest complaint, is the fact that you can't easily find apps to download, as well as updating them, because you have to go through the whole list to see, that has to be updated, that has to be updated. Now you can do this without even having the headset on and do that. But the biggest thing I think is going to be and I did do it this past week. My wife wanted to see some of the spatial videos. The immersive videos. And I just had her say, okay, just put the headset on. She was able to put it on, and it didn't ask for anything else other than it looked at her eyes and said, oh yeah, you can't do this with the eyes, but she still could go and watch the movies with this guest mode, because remember at the beginning, the guest mode was god-awful horrible. I had to go through the whole rigmarole to convert it over and then hand it over, and I think it's going to be much easier. I don't know if you had a chance to try the new mode for that, Marty.
No, I don't have anybody in my household that I can pass it off to that would do it. But yeah, definitely, because you almost had to be flying blind when you had a guest mode on there. Yeah, and also trying to talk them through the process of doing the setup. And now you get a signal on your phone when they put it on, and it releases the permission for them to be able to do that. And you can also mirror what they're seeing. So that's helpful too.
So this is exciting. I mean, I can't wait. I don't have it on my primary, of course. You never put beta on your primary iPhone, but
unless you're me.
But I'm unless you're you.
And me.
So I have it on other phones, but not that one. But I'm excited for this. But the thing is, she did put the headset on without me doing anything, and it allowed her to continue on. I just told her, go to the TV app and then look at the immersive videos, and she was able to navigate without me having to do anything, which was great. So I'm looking forward to that. So, all right, that's Vision Pro this week. Let's go on and talk about the iPhone 16e. Now, Marty, you, as always, are going on that cutting edge. You always buy those new products every time they come out, for the most part. And I
don't know if it's a cutting edge. That gives me way too much credit.
Well, no, Marty just rushes in where angels fear to tread.
Yeah. It's more like a high-end butter knife.
Yeah. That's good. There you go.
I tell you, after carrying around that 16 Pro Max, this is like carrying around a feather, and there's no loss of function for me on this phone. So I have to rethink always getting the most expensive, biggest, best, because this 16e does everything I need it to do.
So tell us, give us your review. The camera is good. Battery life is good. What else?
Battery life's great. Yeah. I have a case on it that has a ring, so it centers on the MagSafe.
Nice.
That I have, so it does the key charging, and I don't have to shift it around too much. I don't know, another 7/10 of an inch in length. I don't miss the landscape, the screen space on it whatsoever. It, like I said, it's everything that I get out of that I primarily use my other phone for. I can do here. Can't do spatial photography. So I've got this phone that I can carry around with me, and I got the other one that's good for photographs and other stuff, of course.
So you recommend it?
Yeah, and modem is fine. I was really curious about the modem. The modem is
the
really
C1,
good.
Yeah,
the C1 new modem. Yeah. So
I fix it. Go ahead.
I suspect 99% of people will not notice the difference between the C1 and the Qualcomm.
Yeah, I doubt it. So check it out. I mean, if it's something that you're looking to, a lot of us, might be happier just with a 16 Pro. Right for now, it's the 16 Pro. The small model is somewhat similar in size, but obviously has a lot more power. But for a phone this least expensive, and it does have Apple Intelligence, it's pretty impressive that they put in a fast enough processor in 16E that it can handle it. So this looks like a good deal to have as like a backup phone. I think it's not a bad idea. But not all those.
It's my travel phone.
There you go.
It's the thing I don't want to get stolen at a bar.
Are you bringing you move your primary number to that phone?
Yeah, I forwarded my primary number to the phone, and of course, I made some purchases a couple of days ago on my Apple account, and they attempted to get a hold of me because there was a problem with the purchase that I made. I had to restart it, and so it got flagged as a bad purchase. But they were attempting to get a hold of me on my other phone, which, although I had forwarded it to this phone, I wasn't getting any of their messages or concerns. So I called them back today on my lunch hour, and I said, "Yeah, I got this message." And the lady worked with me for a while and said, "I really can't. I really need you to call me back on the phone number that's tied to this account," which was the phone that I was forwarding it to. But I had called her back on the Mint Mobile number that I have on the 16E. So it created a little bit of drama in the middle of the day. But yeah, that's what I do. I forward my 16 Pro Max number, my main number, to this phone.
Okay, great. I did put a link in the show notes here with this that iFixit did do a teardown of the 16E, looking a little closer at the C1 modem. Nothing was earth shattering that worth mentioning, but take a look at that article. It's always fun to watch their video and to see how the teardown worked, and it looks like it tore down pretty good, and they gave it a relatively high repair rate, easy to get into and such. So check that out. So let's move on to beta this week, and Apple did release iOS 18.4 beta 2, and it does have a lot of updates, including, like we just talked about, the Vision Pro access with the app there. Of course, you always have to add new emojis, so we get excited about that, right? They always got to have some more new emojis. They do have priority notifications that was in beta 1, but this is now it's improved. That can be set on a per app basis as opposed to all in one here, and as well as they've got an Apple Intelligence section in the Control Center, so you can access that quicker. There's a Visual Intelligence action button there as well. So they've also added Visual Intelligence for iPhone 15 Pro models, so they've added that in the beta. You also can pause App Store downloads, and there's some multiple new actions for the Apple apps in the Shortcuts app. So they've added a number of things here. Photos got some stuff, and as well as it supports the 16E. The thing was that we reported this last week that the iPhone 12 support had been blocked because it was causing bricking some iPhone 12 models, so Apple had pulled it. And with Beta 2, Apple has fixed the issue, so now it's once again available on the iPhone 12. So happy for those iPhone 12 users. So have any of you noticed anything that's standing out with the 18.4 for you?
Yeah. This is going to seem like such a minor thing, but it makes such a big difference. Priority notifications. It's one of those parts of Apple Intelligence that does do a very good job of pointing out the things like text messages from my family or that type of thing, and puts them right at the top where they belong instead of sifting through my 10,000 other notifications, usually from Mastodon and Threads.
Yep. But Marty, how about you? Anything standing out for you on the iOS 18.4?
No, nothing standing out. I do agree with Ben in terms of priority notifications. I am finding myself, because of that, using Focus a little bit more and making some decisions about, walling out aspects of my life and only letting priority notifications come through. My temptation with a new phone is, yeah, sure, I'll take a notification from that. Yeah, sure, I'll take a notification from that. And then after about a week, I have to dial it all back. So setting up priority notifications has been good.
And I would anticipate you're running beta on the 16E, right?
Of course. There's not a phone in my house that's not running the beta. Except my wife's.
Jeff, anything did you try anything with the iPad just yet? I haven't really looked at.
Jeff, you have to unmute yourself to talk.
You are muted though. Yes.
I don't get it. I hadn't actually muted myself.
Oh boy, I didn't.
Whatever. Okay.
Go ahead.
Apparently, somehow I did mute myself, but
your office manager installed controls.
That's very likely. You don't need opposable thumbs to run this office. Anyhow, I had to double check to make sure I'd actually installed Beta 2, which I just did double check, and I have. On my iPad, there's really nothing significant that's different. I feel like a lot of what's happening in 18.4 overall is making a bigger difference on the iPhone than the iPad.
Okay. All right. So again, it's still going through it. We're probably anticipating next month we'll probably see 18.4 out in the wild for everybody. A couple notable things that was reported. This was interesting that 18.4 is bringing RCS support to Google Fi, Mint Mobile, and other T-Mobile MVNOs. The second beta, finally. So it's going to be now in more carriers and other countries too. There's all kinds of reports on Reddit and on the Mac Rumors forums as well. So, so after they installed it, and I know Jeff, you have Mint Mobile. That's going to be you're finally going to get RCS. I mean, that took them long enough to do it. But that's go ahead.
We can't beg on Apple for this. No. They had to wait for the carriers to do all the back end stuff.
Yeah.
And when the carriers do that, then Apple can roll that in with a software update. So, So Apple's been ready and waiting since day one. It just took these other companies a long time to actually get everything done.
Yeah. Yep. But it's a big step forward for those of us with Green Bubble friends, because it pretty much gives you all the features of iMessage except for end-to-end encryption.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the App Store had two new features that were added with 18.4. First of all, the Apple Intelligence generated review summaries. The number of Apple Intelligence features across the devices keeps growing, and this is nothing that's here. It's now when you browse an app or game in the App Store listing, the Apple Intelligence will offer a summary of submitted reviews instead of having to go through all the reviews, which is kind of cool. Although you want to wonder if some of the reviews are legit too, right? And then the second thing you can do now is you actually can pause app downloads and updates. And most of the time you had to just download them or not. You could never pause them. So now you can now in iOS 18.4 pause it temporarily and then help the app update, download, and then resume whenever, or not without losing your progress. So you can just go ahead and download it. So those are two notable changes. Was there? We left you out, Chuck. I know you're not beta running, but did you have any thoughts on any of this stuff?
Now, the only thing, Dave, I've seen a couple people, the tech press comment on certain features, and I'm not even going to dignify the comments.
Mhm.
But some people were praising some, but the ones that always interest me are the ones that say, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever," and
Yeah.
it's like, but then don't use it.
Right.
What's the? I don't understand that. There's some things that I look forward to getting in a release. There are other things like, okay. But Ben's comments about priority messages really intrigued me because that sounds like something I would use. Some of the other things, maybe not so much. But I'll let you know. Yeah, I'll give you my opinions after they're released in
Right.
an actual release. You guys take the. I mean, I noticed. I noticed all of you are wearing dark shirts, so the blood doesn't show, which
Yes.
I think is
I'm
good.
not running it on my iPhone.
I will tell
16 Pro,
you,
but
on the 16E, when I got it, I set it up and it was like, okay, time to put the developer beta on it. And it wouldn't let me put the developer beta on it. And I was like real upset. It said that I had permissions to do it and that it was supposed to be.
yeah.
And I had to wait. And then the next weekend or that same weekend or after the weekend, I turned it on and did it and it did the develop. So there was some delay with immediately after the release of the phone where those
Yeah.
phones couldn't get the developer beta on it. So
Yeah.
Apple didn't have their provisioning done for developers.
probably.
That's great.
Probably.
and
That's
I checked,
probably it.
and that was the discussion on Reddit too. It's like, just wait a while. Eventually they'll get around to sending it out. So
300 days later.
So before we move on, I want to make sure I give a shout out to our chat room at youtube.com/intouchwithios. I see Webb Bixby's joining us. How you doing, Webb? Guy Searle's in the chat. How you doing, Guy? And Brian F as well. They're having some great chat and fun here. And you can be joining us live. That's Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific in our chat room. So come join us. So let's move on to all the new products that Apple announced this week. Well, they surprised us this week, and we noticed that again they're all becoming press releases and teases. No more events. It seems like we wonder if we're going to have any more of these events anymore. But that's okay. We got some new products here. The first one of the iPads that was released was the new iPad Air. It's got an M3 chip, and then they also updated the Magic Keyboard. It's got with the M3 chip, it's going to offer more than 20% faster performance compared to the previous gen model, which was the M2. That was released in May of 2024. And then you've got a brand new Magic Keyboard for the iPad Air. It's a larger trackpad and function keys, and for easy to access to the features like the display brightness and such. So they've they have yet to discover any changes. Anything beyond the M3 chip. So you're going to start seeing some of these things on this particular model, and then they do have some new colors like Starlight Blue, the purple color option, and you got both a 13-inch model and the 11-inch model. Prices start at $599. So I was opening up. What do you guys think with the comparisons between the Airs? I'll start with you, Marty. What do you think was what would stand out? This wasn't anything that attracted you to buy. So
it was a sad day in the Jencius household because there's nothing to buy from Apple on Tuesday. Both the base level iPad was not interesting to me, and this one, iPad Air, I think that a lot of the chatter was it's going to come out with an M4. It's going to come out with an M4. No, it's not going to come out with an M4. That's what the Pro levels are for. And since I had Pro levels, I have Pro machine or Pro iPads. This really didn't interest me that much. I think if people are looking to get out of an older iPad and want to jump into the M series, this is a great iPad to jump in with. But yeah, new processor, new camera on this, I think.
Yeah, it might be.
On the Airs, I think they have I'm not sure, 12 megapixel extra wide camera, center stage.
Yeah, I think that it did add center stage. Yep, but that didn't have that before. So Yeah, it looks like it is. It isn't a big, huge jump in my opinion. I think it's got if you compare the two next to each other, the cores are the same. The neutral engine's the same. It has Apple Intelligence. It's you have center stage. It's a USB-C connector like it always is. So it's got all the same stuff pretty much that I'm looking at here, other than maybe a slight bump in the processing speed. So you might be in the market if you have a really old iPad Air, because if you have, let's say you go to the 5th gen, which was the one just before the M series, definitely probably worth the upgrade. But what's the rest of you guys' thoughts? Jeff, you have you always are having these iPads and doing beta testing. Does anything does this model type would intrigue you, or are you still sticking with what you got?
The iPad Pro is the right model for me. So this iPad isn't going to sway me into getting an Air. That said, I still firmly believe that the best bang for your buck when buying an iPad is to get an iPad Air. And that holds true with the M3. The thing that I find interesting and also long overdue, base storage is 128 gig across the board now. Finally.
64 gig, goodbye, RIP. For everything, not just iPhone 2. So it's still a great bargain. Chuck, what about you? What do you think on the Air? Is this what Apple announced today with this?
I think it's great because it makes all the iPad lines seem current. So, but I'm with Jeff, and Jeff, that was really well stated. The Pro is the machine for me, and that's not egotistical or anything. It's just okay. I want I want fewer compromises, if any compromises, on my iPad, and so again, the Apple Intelligence thing is sort of the interesting aspect of this, as to what they're building into which machine and which ones they're leaving it out of. So I felt like these were just good, solid, iterative upgrades. I know we use that term a lot, but at some point, look at your iPad. There's only so much they can do to change that iPad, and it's got to all be in the software or in the chip. And so these are low to mid-level iPad upgrades. They aren't going to compete with the Pros, but they're fine for a lot of what most people do, if not all people do, with their iPads.
Yeah.
The only thing I can't comment on, because I always do this disclaimer, I'm not a gamer, so I have no idea how this affects potential gamers as to whether these are significant or adequate upgrades. I've got to leave that to somebody else to tell me.
That'd be a very good upgrade.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ben.
So if you look at the differences between the M2, which came out 2022 was the when the chip came out,
and I believe.
Yep. And M3 came out, the chip itself, 2023, and the 2025 Air has a 3 nanometer chip and TSMC, whereas the 2024 model was a 5 nanometer. So it's a little much smaller. You go from 20 billion transistors to 25 billion transistors, and the new Air's got an all new GPU architecture, including dynamic caching, mesh shading, and hardware acceleration by tracing. So they did add some things with video that's improved. So and then the 20% have faster per processor. So, but you know what? That M2 is just a darn good iPad that's still rocking it. I don't see any real reason why you'd want to upgrade from the M2 to the M3 and the iPad Air. I think most people probably would want to.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah. So it's like you said, Chuck. I think this is this great to get the line up to date. It's a nice sweet spot for many people. Not unlike us, we prefer the Pros. I think that's why it's a Pro. Now I feel like it's a Pro because the Air and the Pros previous were getting very, very close. Honestly, the processors were pretty close in speeds, and I think Apple finally did a smart thing and put this at the M3 and the Pros with M4. So I think that was probably a good thing too. And like what Marty mentioned too, the low end side of the iPads, they did unveil the 11th gen iPad with an A16 chip and more and more storage. Thank God, finally, how to have an iPad with 64 gigs of RAM of storage is crazy. So starts at 128 gigs of storage, and you can also get 256 and 512. And like I said, previously they only had the 64 and the 256. Now you can get up to 512 if you want. Same colors: blue, pink, yellow, silver. Continues to start at 349. Although I was seeing some sales already where they're marking it down at the 329. So it definitely is going to be a differences here. So a couple other things that are of note with the 11th gen is the A16 chip has a 5-core CPU, and a 4-core GPU, whereas the 16 Bionic chip and the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max and 15 has 6 cores and a 5-core GPU. So the 11 doesn't support Apple Intelligence. Is that a deal breaker? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how important that would be to people. So, and then of course you've got an upgrade with Bluetooth, and so there's some subtle upgrades. It is all eSIM now, whereas the 10th gen was where it was just still had SIM cards, and it is the 11. Funny enough, is still compatible with the first gen Apple Pencil. Believe it or not, that's kind of crazy. I don't know how you're going to charge it since it's got a Lightning connector to charge it.
That is so weird.
Why would they continue to support that? That's kind of crazy. It was unclear whether or not it had more RAM than in the 11, but they're looking to confirm that. But usually the 16 Bionic had 6 gigs of RAM, but 11 probably has a regular 16 chip, so it might be a little less. But again, the market for this iPad is entry level, probably education. A lot of people who just want a very basic iPad and don't want to spend a lot of money on it. I mean, I'm sure the older models can be had for a much cheaper price if they're still out there. I'm sure there's a lot of them in the secondary market. Just you could save even more money on this. But yeah, I think this isn't anything overly exciting other than I think Apple's being smart and having this low end market for iPads. Don't you think, Jeff?
Yeah, going with an A16 instead of an A17. Yeah, I'm still having some issues with that because that means Apple intentionally designed a new iPad or an iPad refresh that doesn't support a feature they're pushing hard on everyone, Apple Intelligence. Right. So yeah, that's kind of weird. The Apple Pencil part I'd completely missed that. And of course, I've already come up with a hypothesis on why it still supports the first gen Apple Pencil. Yes, you have to use the Lightning to USB-C adapter to plug it in and charge it. So why not just say, and you can use this with the USB-C Apple Pencil? I think it's because Apple knows the USB-C Apple Pencil is hot garbage. And if you want to use a good Apple Pencil with this device, then it either has to be an Apple Pencil 2 or 2 Pro, or which means then you have to put the magnetic charging coils on the side of the iPad. They don't want to do that because then they have to change form factor and add in more cost. So the easy answer is you want to use a good Apple Pencil. Great. It's still the first generation, but you have to use an adapter to plug it in and pair and charge.
Any thoughts on this, Marty? With the go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
To me, right now, 3 of the 4 iPad lines make complete and utter sense. The 11th gen iPad slightly confounds me. Honestly, I know they're trying to push people up into the air, but if this would have had the A17 Pro and pretty much been more or less the same feature set as the iPad Mini, even with a slight price increase. This would have been a slam dunk to replace my mom's A14 iPad Air.
Okay.
With the A16 and no Apple Intelligence, I don't know if I don't want to wait another year.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think on this model, Marty? So with what we've been talking about,
I think it's a gateway drug, which I'm all about for folks who want to get into the Apple ecosystem and are familiar using tablets or familiar using phones. This is great. Maybe educational because you're looking at a relatively low cost iPads, so you can purchase them for classrooms. And the big thing from the educational setting is we want it cheap because if it gets broken or stolen, we don't want to spend $600 to replace it.
Right.
So this gives the educational market an iPad that'll get them there in the classroom. Now, doesn't have Apple Intelligence, which means it doesn't have the tools that people can use on there.
Mhm.
I presume you could run GPT and other LLMs through their app services. So if you're looking at teaching kids how to use AI and LLMs, then you can still do that on this. You just can't do it with Apple Intelligence.
Right. Last with you, Chuck. What do you think on this iPad? What's your thoughts?
While everyone was talking, I was punching up some numbers here. So the entry level iPad is $349,
Right.
as opposed to the lowest iPad Air, which is $599. That's a $250 gap, and
Right.
that's a pretty good gap. I didn't bother to do the percentages, but that's a pretty decent discount, if you will, or lower price. And so I think Ben was the one that said it, does for $250, will it push you up to the Air to get a little bit larger screen, get Apple Intelligence, get a little better chip? Or if you don't feel you need it, or to Marty's point, it being a gateway drug, it seems like a perfectly legitimate gateway drug.
Yep.
Because if you're buying a basic iPad, then you are buying a basic iPad, and I would hope that you would do enough shopping around to understand that. That's the biggest challenge here that I see to it, is making sure that the salespeople in Best Buy and the big box stores are adequately communicating the differences. And if you want to call them shortcomings, call them shortcomings. But I think being able to put the iPad experience in the hands of someone for $349 is pretty darn good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. $250 for a lot of people. That price increase, that is a showstopper right there. So this is a much more affordable price point. And as everyone's been talking, I've been thinking about the Apple Intelligence part. While it still seems weird to me that Apple would sell a new product where they've intentionally blocked it from having Apple Intelligence support.
Mhm.
If your school, you probably don't want the students having direct access to that. Because keep in mind, how long did schools resist pocket calculators? So, yeah. Anyhow, but then the other thing is, you want to buy a lower price, more affordable iPad, so that the kids have something to play with and mess around with.
Mm.
Apple Intelligence is not a consideration for that. You want the thing that lets them play the games and do the FaceTime chats and stuff. You don't need all of the other features.
Right. All right. Let's move on to In Touch with Mac this week. the beta didn't is out there also for Mac OS Sequoia. It's a 15.4. That's got new mail integration. That's what they've added. That's the first time reorganizing the mail app into dedicated categories like transactions, updates, promotions, and primary. A category that surfaces for the most important emails first. You also are going to get, we talked about this already, Apple News Plus subscribers will have a new dedicated News Plus food section with recipes, articles about restaurants, and related content. There's going to be a new sketch style and image playground, so you can create memory movies in the Photos app, and then Apple Intelligence is expanding to new languages. So nothing big earth-shattering on beta. Have you tried that, Ben and Marty, with Sequoia?
Yeah. I mean, I upgrade when the upgrades happen.
Yep.
So I've had it as long as it's been out. And I do like the Apple News changes. I do like the food section, being kind of a foodie myself with recipes and such. Still not into Image Playground. I tried to get it to generate some images. I tried a bunch of LLMs to generate images, and Jeff will be happy to hear that it did a miserable job of what I wanted it to do. So,
Well, on one hand, but on the other hand, I'm disappointed because I know when I want to see an absolutely ridiculous image, I need to ask Marty to feed the prompts into the system, because he will get an image that's much more ludicrous than I'm picturing, and that I would be able to generate myself. So,
yeah,
no pressure, Marty.
trained monkey.
Oh.
That's all I am.
Yep. Yes.
But a well-trained monkey, Marty.
Very well.
Yeah. I work for
And
peanuts.
mostly housebroke. It's great.
All right. Now let's move on to what Apple announced in the Mac line. There is a brand new MacBook Air M4 with a really cool color. Sky blue is a color option. They have the 13 and 15-inch MacBook Air model. It's it's featuring the M4 chip with upgraded camera and the new color. The sky blue is an all-new blue finish that joins midnight, starlight, and silver. Apple describes it as a beautiful metallic light that creates a dynamic gradient when light reflects off the surface. But hey, look at this. Space gray, no longer available. Those of you who don't like space gray, well, the space gray's been around forever. No more space gray.
Gray's been this range of shades.
Yeah.
Isn't it still available in the iPad series? I heard somebody say that today. That's the one place you
I
can
thought
still
it was
get
space
it.
black.
Space black, yeah.
Oh.
It's okay. So here's the thing. As long as we've gone down this path, let's commit to it. What is up with Apple not being able to have consistent colors across their devices? If you want to have an iPhone and an iPad that have matching colors, and then you want an iMac to go with it, and you're going and you choose blue, whatever the blue is, you will have 3 different blues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the color is. It's 3 different of whatever it is. Why can't Apple have consistent colors across their devices?
True. Well,
You do
the Mac.
You do what civilized people do, Jeff. You buy a case to cover it.
Well, I mean, yes, there is that, but it's the principle of the thing. When you go commando, you expect. Actually, I have to stop right there.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what your expectations were, but
Yeah. I don't know where that metaphor is going, but
yeah, I don't know where.
I will tell you when we're not recording and we're not on the air, because I was about to
You
say
can tell us
something
right after we end the stream.
Yeah.
And get off the call.
I'm glad that I had the self-awareness to realize what was about to come out of my mouth for once.
So let's go back to the colors here. Oh, go ahead, Chuck. You have one.
Well, I love Jeff and I get a kick out of him, but this is an argument I've had with Kelly Gamet too. It's okay. So they're doing different colors. I mean, and I agree with Marty, because everything that I own goes into a case anyway. But I just can't get excited over this. I don't know. And if it sounds like I'm defending them, I'm not. I don't know if it has something to do with the manufacturing processes that they don't want to try. And for reasons that are not relevant here, I think it always looks worse if you look like you tried and missed, as opposed to just being boldly different. And so I don't know what the logic is, but if this is the biggest thing you have to worry about, good for you.
Yeah. Well, just to continue to wrap up this color debate here, that's the new color. If you look at the MacBook Pro, it's just space black and silver now. So you only have space black is available just on the MacBook Pros, where you can't get space black on the Air. So I mean, it's kind of like with the the iPhone 16, the 16 Plus has all the fun colors, whereas the 16 Pro doesn't. So that's what they did. They kind of aimed this to be a fun color. But
Yes.
I'm looking at the comparisons between, I've got the M3 MacBook Air, which is a perfectly fine laptop, and it's really great. One of the things you'll notice is the pricing. It's starting at $999 with the M4, where it was $1099 with the M3. So they did bring the price down $100. But if you compare them, the CPU is from 10 core to 8 core. The GPU is pretty much the same. You can get up to 32 gigs of RAM versus 24, and then up to 2 terabytes of storage. Of course, you'll pay through the teeth that 2 terabytes. And then both have Touch ID. So, but comparatively wise, it isn't a huge drastic difference. So, would I say I'm definitely not going to upgrade from the M3 to the M4? I don't feel that need, because that thing's meeting my needs fine, because I use it as a travel Mac that I keep with me, and I'm still sporting my M1 MacBook Pro as my daily driver for production. So then that will probably look to maybe go to an M5 next year. We'll see. But overall, I think this is great to see that Apple continues to keep this Air line going, because it's very popular, and the pricing is just very, very good quality as far as getting those differences here. So, but I said, comparison wise, there really wasn't a huge jump between these two, and that's what you got to decide. If you have an M1, this is probably a no-brainer, honestly.
Or an M2.
Or even an M2 for that matter. Yep. I had an M2. I went to the M3. See, I couldn't resist last time. Now I'm going to. So
yeah. To be perfectly honest, this is going to sound completely petty and sounded like it's coming from basically, well, the sky blue color makes me almost want to upgrade from my M1 14-inch Pro.
Okay. I mean, the Air is a good machine.
Color does matter.
It does.
Jeff, I dressed for the occasion in the color of the new MacBook Air.
Yeah,
you did.
Blue.
So
Actually, yeah, you did.
Color does matter. I agree. It's just the matching color I can't get excited about.
Yeah. So
You're
meanwhile, the
clearly
M2
not a designer.
Clearly.
So Apple completely discontinued the M2 and the M3, so it's out of the standard product line. You might find it in refurb or in third parties, but those are gone. Who knows? There might be a lot of stock left. They might, who knows, bring it over to Walmart again like they did with the M1. So, but you don't really have to worry about that. So, but also what we also saw was announced was the new Mac Studio. Everybody got excited about that. This brings all the way up to an M4 Max chip that was already released last year for the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. But now it's going to be, there is now an M3 Ultra chip that has a chip here as well for 32 core CPU. So this is definitely a big bang for your buck model here. For this, Marty, did you buy one?
I thought the M3 chips were dead because they talked about how hard they were to manufacture. But apparently they just slammed two of them together back to back and put them in a studio and charge you a lot of money for the studio. Of course I bought one. I was resisting because it didn't come in sky blue. But
Yeah, that's fair.
Only silver.
it comes in silver and silver. Yeah. I got a 64 gigabyte unified M4 Max chip. I didn't go for the M3 Ultra. 16 core, 40 core GPU, 16 core neural engine. And I got a nice trade in on my previous Ultra. So it's more than a couple of years old, and I thought I would do the
Yeah.
bump. And ironically, Dave and I were texting in the morning, and he said, "Oh, you should be happy. There's things to buy now." And I was on my phone app. I was on my phone app, and and all I saw was the MacBook Air, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, well, what the
No.
heck? I'll be happy." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're probably not going to release the Studio until, sometime in June during WWDC." And then I went on, and he was like laughing, and I went on, and
Yes. They hear Tim Cook come on. This is Tim. Hold my beer.
yeah, on the phone store though, on the app on the phone, it didn't show the Studio. It only showed the MacBook Air. So,
yeah,
I was surprised when I found it, and then
well, it looks like you can do some serious upgrades with this new model. The CPU went from up to a 24 core to up to a 32 core. GPU is up to an 80 core versus 76. You can now get up to 512 gigabytes of unified memory versus 192, and you can get a whopping 16 terabytes into this bad boy. Versus a max was 8 terabytes. So this could be a very serious production machine if you were really doing some serious editing. The thing is, if you were to max out a Ultra, it would cost you up to $15,000. If you had,
which compared to the old Intel cheese grater Mark III, is actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah. So it's got a lot of bang for the buck. So we go around the room here and go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. First, my my marketing WTF. Why in the world would you have marketing where the M3 chip is the more powerful one over the M4 chip going into the device? That just, I mean, I get it that they actually are different chips, but it sure seems like the M4 Max should do more than the M3 Ultra because it's an M4, not an M3, and most people aren't looking at the Max versus Ultra as the true differentiator in this. So just pointing that out because I thought it was weird.
Most people aren't buying these.
I know most people aren't buying these, but still, it just seems like a weird marketing thing. But anyhow, so here's the question that I'm posing, and I asked Brian Chaffin about this on Context Machine, and I think I kind of scared him with this. If you look at all the marketing stuff, the press release, the new Studio with Thunderbolt 5, in the marketing, it says, so it can support an external expansion chassis.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So the question I posed to Brian, which I'm posing to all of you, do you think this means that Apple is done with the Mac Pro? This is now their top of the line machine. And if you need the type of expansion that's part of the Mac Pro line today, they expect you just to get an expansion chassis and call it good.
Yeah.
That's possible. I mean, that's good. That's a good theory. For sure.
Brian's response was along the lines of, "Oh my God, I hope not."
I mean, to be perfectly honest, in most cases, the people who need cards in these days are probably going to have a rack for the expansion chassis, and we'll either have the Studio in the rack, or already have the rack for other things like audio equipment. Right by their workstation. So I don't looking at the specs, I would highly doubt if the M2 Mac Pro sold very well. I think Apple
Well,
looked
it didn't need
at
to sell well. It needed to sell to the right
comparatively.
market.
Comparatively. I think I have nothing to back this up, but I think the Ultra or the Studio far outsold the Mac Pro in given markets. And I think Apple actually listened to what their customers were doing with it. I would be very, very surprised if we ever saw another Mac Pro.
A Mac Pro, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the
Chuck, how
form
about you?
factor.
What, tell us about this. What do you think of this Mac Studio, and what's your thoughts of that?
Yeah, I mean, well, sort of on the Mac Pro issue, the Mac Studio is a lot more portable than a Mac Pro. It's not obviously it's not a MacBook Pro, but it's something that could be moved around a heck of a lot easier. It's got it's got the top of the line connectivity, and so it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see a Pro by name at this if in the future. Now, to go to the Macs, the M3 versus M4, Apple came out and said, well, not every line may get an Ultra Series chip. Okay, fine, but they just raised the bar using two M3s. What's to say they can't or wouldn't if the need is out there, or they perceive the need that they could eventually do an M4 Ultra. It just may not be here right now, but for right now, they've just upped the game on the top end of the Macs with the M3 or the M3 Ultra. So, in some ways, I think it's kind of a genius move. The other thing to think about is what percentage of the market, and none of us know, Apple knows, what percentage of their sales go to the absolute top end in any line. And I would think that's, kind of minimal percentage wise. And so, how many people are going to, there's going to be somebody, and even for the money, it's still a great deal, but how many people are going to max out a studio for what, $15,000? I think you said.
Well, over 14,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure there are edge cases out there, but I think we need to look at this from a business perspective as to how many they're going to sell, just not, boy, could they really push this and make it even better, bigger, better, and faster.
Yeah, it'll be for a handful for rack mounts and Marquez Brownlee.
There's no question he has one.
Don't forget though
that
the wheels are an extra $1,000. So if you want to put wheels on your studio,
that's true. Put the wheels on the studio. Yeah, that would be interesting. So we got some great new Macs out there. I think the Air is going to be a very hot seller for this year. That's an absolute great deal. Again, the studios for your pros out there, and we'll see what happens if the Mac Pro is still around or if it's not. I think that's a pretty good theory there, Jeff, with that. So it's going to be interesting to see. So, all right, got a couple news stories before we wrap up this week. Tapbots, remember Tapbots, right? They were known for that defunct Tweetbot app. Is now planning to release a new app for the Blue Sky social network later this year. It's going to be called Making Phoenix. Or it's called Phoenix. It is going to be developed for the iPhone and Mac, and in tandem, and with Ivory, which is used for Mastodon. The app Tapbots created for the Mastodon social network, as I said, and Tapbots says that the Blue Sky has become very, very popular. That I think that they felt it worth it to match it nicely with their Mastodon app. So and of course, it is cool to see that they're going to be developing this and to have some more third-party apps and not be with the Blue Sky app. And we're all on Blue Sky, and it's something that I think is continues to be popular. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, Tapbots, take my money right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to have to wait till summer to pay for this. I just switched back to Ivory because of this. It's going to be absolutely the highest quality Blue Sky app there is. These guys don't mess around when it comes to making social media apps.
Nope. What do you think, Chuck?
Sort of what Ben said. Tapbots is, top of the line. If you spend a lot of time in Blue Sky, why wouldn't you take this and make your experience better?
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get the notifications that Blue Sky doesn't give you.
Yeah. How about you, Jeff?
I don't use Blue Sky a lot, not like I do Mastodon. So I spend a lot of time in Ivory and a little bit of time in the Blue Sky app. However, when Phoenix comes out, of course I'm going to get it. And I will probably start using Blue Sky more simply because it's Phoenix will be a better app.
Yep. And last but not least, Marty, what do you think?
Yeah, I've got to throw some love towards Tapbots, because I guess any really good app that gets bounced out of a platform because they're a better app than what the platform has to provide.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it deserves our attention and our money. And for me, that's the same thing goes for Reddit, with the support apps they had for Reddit that got bounced, just like the ones that got bounced from Twitter. I follow those developers and look at the products they're producing. And I'm glad they're finding homes other places to do it. So.
Right. And we've already talked about this from the Icon Factory, Tapestry. Absolutely love that app. And both Jeff and I supported them in Kickstarter, and we got a nice lifetime subscription to it now, which is great. And that's a great aggregator. I got to start using it more, because I think it could very well replace my newsreaders, because it just you could put Blue Sky feeds in there too. So if you're following anybody specific in Blue Sky, you can put those in there as well. So there's another alternative, kind of alternative, but Tapbots is more focusing on just one specific social media like Ivory.
Well, there's another big distinction between apps like Ivory and Phoenix and Tapestry, and it's that Tapestry is a viewing stream. You're not interacting with content directly in Tapestry, but you can in Ivory and Phoenix. So, like for me, I'll go through Tapestry and look at all this content. And the problem that I have today is that I will look at stuff and think, oh, I really have something I want to say on that, or I want to like it, or whatever. And that means I have to leave Tapestry to do that. I don't want to. So I end up actually not interacting with some stuff that I otherwise would. I'm not saying that as a complaint. It's just an observation that I've noticed. So to me, it's an important distinction about these types of apps and how they're used.
Absolutely. All right. 2 more stories here. We were just talking about ChatGPT. They now have an update that just came out that now you can now directly edit code in Xcode, VS Code, and more on Mac OS. It was updated to do that, and also it's which means it's really competing with Apple's Swift Assist and GitHub Copilot. Third-party intelligence tools have been available for a while, but now it's got direct connection to Xcode. Obviously, none of us are developers, but good to see that they're really blossoming. Maybe you can become a coder just by using ChatGPT, right? Don't you think, Jeff?
Well, you can.
Yes, you will. It's another story.
Good.
Yeah, should.
I am a little bit leery of this, only because there are so many stories of people asking ChatGPT to write code for them, and it writes code that's wrong, just flat out wrong. And when developers have experimented with this, and then they ask ChatGPT, what's wrong with this, or this won't run, then it will go back and try and come up with new code that works right. So when it works, okay, that's cool, but it doesn't work often enough that it can be a problem. So it'll be interesting to see if this works well, directly integrated, or if it causes more headaches than people want.
Right. I'll just open up the rest of you guys. Anybody wants to add anything to this before we move on to the last story?
Honestly, I think the Copilot integration on Windows is a pretty killer feature for coding. So kind of getting that thing on the Mac through ChatGPT is really going to help the platform.
And we know that. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, even if people have to learn to fix some bad code.
Yeah, I think it's a false comparison, Jeff, because we know coders get it right always the first time.
Oh, Marty, your delivery was perfect. And message received, and you're right. Yeah.
Yep.
That's Marty Jencius at
Jencius
yeah.
on Blue Sky.
Yeah. Blue Sky.
Then last story. I found this a little bit relatively interesting. Police in Australia are using CarPlay in an interesting way. Drivers love Apple CarPlay because it enables safe interaction with iPhone apps through the car's built-in screen. It turns out police in Australia are benefiting from CarPlay for a whole nother safety purpose. Law enforcement vehicles in Western Australia are using CarPlay to help identify vehicles of interest without the need of specialized equipment inside the car. And this is how it works. The police force is conducting a faster and better informed investigations on road policing throughout the state, and through the addition of automatic number plate recognition capabilities within Motorola Solutions PS Core mobile application. That expanded app has been deployed to more than 80 vehicles, and it's got seamless integration via Apple CarPlay. So making it simple for them to use and negate the need for additional equipment with the screens and brackets. Though continued development and innovation with the PS Core mobile app has provided the police with more greater capabilities. It's to respond to the wider varying of incidents, including family violence incidents as well. Capabilities have been automated to publish the family violence reports in real time to their communities. Could this come to the U.S.? Boy, I found this to be pretty interesting. What do you think, Marty?
Well, I was watching Reddit, and there was a video of a police officer who had to call into his superior to explain that he accidentally ran into the car in front of him because he was busy putting things into the pad that apparently they're not supposed to be doing when they're driving. But this, I think, kind of alleviates that problem from what I can tell.
Yeah.
It's sort of a handheld device, maybe even an optical scanner where, from what I can tell from the image, it's putting the plate number in and they're able to run it from there, and instead of having to physically put it in, typing it into a pad that's sitting on a computer on a bracket. So
yeah, that's a lot of police cars I noticed have the laptop bracket next to them. So
yeah.
How about you, Chuck?
Go ahead, Ben. Oh, go ahead, Chuck. Okay. Listen, have you seen how people drive post-pandemic? I mean, anything that's going to help slow people down and get them to pay more attention. I'm horrified at the things I see on the road these days. And so I know policing isn't the only way, but anything that will help the police do their job a little more efficiently and address things like this. I know there are going to be people that say, "Oh my God, license plate scanners and all that." But look, we've all seen the TV shows. A police car is going down the road and they call a plate in, and somebody somewhere queries a database somehow and says. So this just speeds up the whole process, and it's CarPlay too, which I'm a CarPlay fan, so I'm biased.
Go ahead, Ben.
Look, policing internationally, especially when it comes to vehicles, is very different than in the United States.
True.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see this come to the United States. However, Australia and Europe and most other places use vehicles that are far closer to the production models than U.S. police cars. So essentially being able to take standard production car, be able to use this without adding additional equipment could really help a lot of these international police departments, especially if they go to sell that vehicle to like a regular citizen after it has left police service.
Yep. And final word from Jeff.
When you look at what police are doing when they're just driving, they should probably be considered some of the most dangerous drivers on the road. And I'm not saying that like holy crap, these people don't know how to drive. But you're driving a car, okay? That should be the only thing any of us do when we're behind the wheel. We should only drive the car. That means you don't touch a radio. You don't fiddle around with stuff in the passenger seat. You don't talk on a phone, even with a cordless headset. So here we have police. They're driving a car. They are talking on a radio. They are looking at least one secondary screen because there's information coming in all the time. And they're trying to process all of this stuff while going down the road at 60 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Holy crap. This is fracking dangerous. So finding ways to pull them out of the process so that they can focus more on actually driving a car when they're in a car that's in motion sounds like a really great thing to me. Ben, I disagree with you about this not coming to the United States. I think there are a lot of agencies that would love to be able to just scan plates while they're rolling all the time and then find a reason to make the stop after the plate has been scanned, as opposed to what you're supposed to do right now, which is have a reason for the stop, and then as part of the stop, then you find out from the license plate if it's legit or not.
I would say this technology will come to the U.S., but it won't be through CarPlay.
That's fair.
That's fair. All right. Well, that's the show for this week. We went a little longer this week, but we had some good stuff to talk about because all those new products came out from Apple, and I'm sure there's going to be more coming up as we continue on through this year. But for now, let's go ahead and wrap up for this week. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Blue Sky and Mastodon at InTouchWithIOS. Support the show. Buy me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you're notified when we are live streaming, which is Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/intouchwithios. Thank you for Guy and Brian and Webb and all others. We had a great crowd here tonight in the chat room. You can join us anytime live, but you also can go back and watch the previous live streams as well as listen to past shows. And you can also go to our magazine on Flipboard, In Touch with iOS magazine, that is, where many of the topics that we discuss are flipped into that magazine. The link is in our show notes. You can subscribe to the show in your favorite podcatcher, including Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, and many others. But better yet, just go to our website. It's intouchwithios.com, because that's where all the links to all the ways to listen to us, or they're out there on that website. I am Dave Ginsberg. You can find me on Blue Sky and Mastodon at DaveG65. Chuck Joyner, as always, a pleasure having you on the show. Where can people find you?
MacVoices.com is where you'll find me doing interviews with different people, doing panel interviews with the Mac Voices Live crew that we record Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. And you can find me on the socials as @ChuckJoyner. Dave, thanks for having me. It's always a blast.
It is a blast. Thank you. And I'm going to mix it up a little bit here. Jeff Gamet, I'm glad you were here this week, and where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on social media as Jay Gamet, and I'm doing most of my posting right now on Mastodon and PixelFed and some on Blue Sky. Then for shows, Tuesdays on Chuck's Mac Voices Live, here with you on Thursdays for In Touch with iOS. On the British Tech Network, The Big Show on Thursdays, The Mac Show on Fridays, and then Brian Chaffin and I do The Context Machine, and Patrice Brendamore and I do Retro Rewatch.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Marty Jencius, great to have you as always. Where can people find you?
Well, of course, Thursdays here with you, Dave. Tuesdays with Chuck on Mac Voices Live. Monday nights with Eric Bolden doing our show called Vision Profiles. And other podcasts that I do you can look for at thepodtalk.net. You can connect with me, Jencius, Jencius, at Mastodon or on, what's that other one? Blue Sky. And just having a great time. Glad I'm here. This is the pleasure of the day, pleasure of the evening.
Indeed. Thank you. And glad Ben Rathig was able to make it back with us. Where can people find you?
Well, Dave, you can find me at Ben Rathig on your social media of choice, including those mentioned by my friends here on the panel. You can also find my writings and ravings, though they've been a little stale, at rathigtech.com. You can also find me when I'm not working, which is going to not be a whole lot in the next week. You can find me in such esteemed shows as the Big and Mac Show on the British Tech Network with this non-British guy named Jeff Gamet. Mac Voices Live with birthday boy Chuck Joyner. Cat's out of the bag. And of course, when I'm able to, here on In Touch with iOS with Dave Ginsburg.
Yes. Thanks so much, Ben. Yes, happy birthday, Chuck. And thanks for being here. Thanks all of you for being here. Thanks everybody for listening, for watching. We always have a blast doing this show, and we'll do it again next week. But until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll talk again soon.